Sushant Sareen, the Additional Solicitor General, Devang Vyas, appeared for the NIA in Bombay High Court. He argued urban Naxals were complementary part of rural armed struggle, and urban Naxals arranged logistics and manpower and funds. Sir, this was said while opposing bail to a certain Gautam Navlakha. He is alleged to have received these Chinese funds, and we are showing that money trail as claimed by the Enforcement Directorate, sir. So if serious, if true, this is very, very serious, very, very dangerous, Sushant Sareen.
Gaurav, quite clearly, if you look at the ED report, it's a slam dunk. But what is surprising is, and I think the ED got after these guys on the basis of that Bhima Koregaon case. If somebody has any other information, please correct me. Now, unfortunately, I think what the ED has focused on, and I believe there is a case underway right now against these guys, NewsClick fellows, but that's on charges of money laundering.
Yes.
What about charges of acting as influence agents of a hostile foreign country, acting on behalf of a hostile foreign country, planting news on behalf of a hostile foreign country? Is there or is there not a law against something like that in this country? If there is not, then there should be a law. After all, the government, and I think that is something good that this government has been doing, it's been pilloried for it, but I think in retrospect, especially after this particular incident, it's something very good which this government has done by cracking down on sources of foreign funding to news organizations, to think tanks. I work in a think tank, and I can tell you it is with so much of care that every single account is maintained, for example, in the ORF and in many of the other think tanks. So there is a massive kind of a scrutiny on foreign funds which are coming in for NGOs, for missionaries, for you name the thing, right? Why is a Chinese organization funding a news organization which is not making money in India? What is the reason for investment? Now, and this is not just this Singham fellow who's working for the Chinese. Let's talk, now you bring in the entire George Soros network in this. It's been floated as a conspiracy theory, but quite clearly it's not a conspiracy theory. We very often see journalists attached to the George Soros Foundation, George Soros organizations and his money asking questions in the US State Department, which again target India. We've seen this across the board.
Okay.
Now, so these are operations which are going on. The government is cracking down on it. But in this particular case, why they haven't slapped on charges of espionage against these fellows?
And that is something, Aparajita Sarangi, this cannot just be a political point or a press conference. If these charges are true, then an FIR needs to be filed, legal action taken to a logical conclusion, madam. Because Congress MP Shashi Tharoor, he says charges leveled by the BJP are absurd. The Congress says they are taking on the BJP for not being tough on China after Galwan, for peddling, as Dr. Shama Mohammed was just saying, for saying na koi ghusa hai, na koi ghusaya hai. How is the Congress peddling Chinese agenda is the question they ask. Aparajita Sarangi.
See, I have mentioned earlier that the security of the I have mentioned earlier that the security of the country is our utmost priority and there cannot be any kind of compromise. You mentioned, I mentioned, in fact, in 2021, ED was on the job, ED is on the job, and in fact, we have taken it very seriously. The work is on, and in fact, what I am trying to hint at is there is an anti-India design. There is a Break India initiative by all these people who have been rightly pointed out as, who are all part of one umbilical cord. So I think the Ministry of Home Affairs is seized of the matter and all the investigating agencies are on the job. We have taken it very seriously.
Okay, it remains to be seen whether this is taken to its logical conclusion and whether there's a time frame. Sushant Sareen, the peddling of Chinese agenda hasn't just been restricted to border clashes. The same individual wrote in the same news portal, even on the Rafale fighter jet deal, the same fighters that the Indian Air Force has so strongly backed. China would not want India to have these latest fighter jets. And were so many within our country, Sushant Sareen, trying to stall that process and that procurement.
Yeah, and that is the unfortunate part, it pains me to say this because the Congress party has traditionally been the standard bearer of Indian nationalism in this country, right?
Yes.
It was the party of national interest. It was the party of governance in this country. And to see the kind of decline in the Congress party, the kind of agendas they have started backing, agendas which are clearly anti-India, the kind of rhetoric they indulge in, it pains somebody like me who was at least at one point of time a very strong Congress supporter, right? And a lot of people have moved away from the Congress party precisely because of this reason, that they seem to be pushing dubious agendas. And quite clearly, when the Congress party made a big deal out of the Rafale issue, which was essentially a government-to-government sale. Now, either you are saying that, the Indian government was paying the French president of that time a certain bribe to get these aircraft, which was utter nonsense, of course. It was very clear that this was a deal whose time had come, in fact, whose time had come many, many years back. For 20 years, we had been going around the bush to try and get these aircraft, and we were flying those flying coffins called MiG-21s. I think it's shameful for a country like India to be flying those damn aircraft, and then we saw what happened, later on.
They were excellent at one point of time. You're absolutely right, MiG-21s, but right now, the Rafales...
These people these aircraft have spooked the Pakistanis, they've spooked the Chinese. So obviously the Chinese would want to, muddy the waters every time there is some new equipment going to come in. And who better to use than these useful idiots in the Indian media who will push a certain agenda, either knowingly or unknowingly. In this case, it seems
either knowingly or unknowingly, or was it all this money that's being talked about? If crores and crores were being paid, then there would be a money trail, and let's see if legal action backed by evidence follows, or are these just political charges that are leveled in the run-up to 2024 elections.